Welcome into ATL Day Ones with Jarvis and Tenitra. Coming up on today's show, the Atlanta Hawks take on the Milwaukee Bucks tonight, and I just want to see some consistency.
Understood. And the Falcons put a wrap and a bow on the 2022 season, but did they give us today a sneak peek into what they want to do in replacing someone on the sidelines and some folks on the field?
And last but not least, and for the culture, Kendall Milton is my homeboy. We'll talk about all that next right here on ATL Day Ones. Let's go.
This is ATL Day Ones, part of Locked On Sports Atlanta. And it starts now.
Thank you for making ATL Day Ones your first listen of the day. Remember, we're free and available wherever you download your podcast. And wherever you download your podcast, make sure you leave us a 5-star review. Really appreciate it from you in advance. Today's episode of ATL Day Ones is brought to you by Bet Online. And also, if you want to see us on the big screen, if you're tired of listening to it on your phone, I get it. You know, you want to see what we look like, what we sound like, all that good stuff. Go ahead and download that Roku and Amazon Fire app. I am live out here at Flowery Branch Training Facilities. We gotta talk about what's going. We gotta download on Fontenot, Arthur Smith. But first, we gotta talk about the Atlanta Hawks taking on the Milwaukee Bucks to get the dub out there and to finish the road trip 2-2, 500. And we saw a lot of good things in that game. And I think one of the things that I really liked about it, T, is the fact that Trae Young was able to close that bad boy out, but also another guy that has been really coming along since he came off of injury, DeAndre Hunter.
Indeed.
For the last 4 games, T, since he's come off, he's averaging about 19 points, and he's been playing lights out on D.
Yeah, that's been very, very exciting to see because anytime we see DeAndre in two-way form, it's always a good look for the Hawks. And normally, I'm not talking about just a good look, Jarvis, but usually that's a W, you know?
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I always like to see. And Jarvis, what I also liked about what I saw in DeAndre Hunter was the aggressiveness, the assertiveness.
Yeah.
Everybody talked about this. It kind of went viral. What happened at the, was it 30 seconds before halftime, right?
Yes.
Because you had this deep three from Trae Young, and then you had the alley-oop to John Collins, and then you had the steal and the dunk from DeAndre Hunter. That's the type of aggressiveness that we're going to need to see from them tonight in order for them to get a win. But yeah, anytime we see Dre being aggressive, that's always a positive. Especially you look in that plus minus, the differential is always in favor for Dre, and therefore in favor for the Hawks.
Absolutely, and that's the thing that you want to look for from this team, because we know the team is capable. It's just night in and night out. What's their mindset? What's their mindset going into this game? Because we know what they're capable of because we've seen it. We talked about as far as what DeAndre Hunter can do. We've talked about what John Collins can do when he's using his basketball IQ in games and late in games, and even in that game against the Clippers, he was able to get a key rebound, and box out and do what he's supposed to do in those moments. So I think that the key for them tonight is definitely that consistency and making sure they're doing what Coach Nate wants them to do. And I think that when you start asking about some of those things, I thought it was kind of interesting though. I kind of want to throw this at you. Also, the Hawks officially announced that they signed Derek Favors to a 10-day contract. I don't know about you, T, but that man, he's a big. And last time I checked, we've been waiting on Clint Capela to come back for how long?
September 23rd, 7 games ago and counting. So Landry Fields told John and Hugh, our guys over at 92.9 this morning, that Clint Capela was day-to-day. And then an hour or two later, they confirmed for us that they were signing Derek Favors to a 10-day contract. He, of course, former power forward and center for Georgia Tech, and, of course, a journeyman in the NBA. And what that tells me is this. Yes, I don't doubt, because Landry Fields is always very forthright, that CC is indeed day-to-day. But the definition of day-to-day, because you know how the Hawks do it. They move from, we're going to have you with trainers, kind of doing some one-on-one action, and then we might move into 2-on-2, 3-on-3 until we get you to the point where you're able to play 5-on-5 ball, and then we'll slowly bring you back in on minutes restriction.
Yeah.
So until I hear him, meaning Landry Fields, say that Clint Capela is maybe doing 3-on-3s or 4-on-4s, then you go out and get Derek Favors. That tells me that maybe Clint's getting close, but not nearly as close as we need him to be, especially having missed 7 games. So yeah, I think that kind of low key told you what you needed to know about the fact that they know that although Onyeka Okongwu has had an excellent run across the last couple of years against Giannis Antetokounmpo, you have some tough games coming up next, and you're going to need a presence like that in the middle, especially because, okay, Jarvis, not trying to be mean or throw anyone under the bus, but Frank Kaminsky ain't it.
Yes, like you literally read my mind because I'm sitting up here like I do not want to see Frank Kaminsky in the first quarter of
No,
any game for the rest
no,
of the season. Like the
at
Hawks
all.
are officially probably about halfway through the season right
Yeah.
now, and I don't want to see it. I don't want to see Mr. Kaminsky in the game in the first quarter. All the time I want to see him is at the end of games when the
Yes.
Hawks got the game in hand, and
Right.
I want
It's trash points and trash
when the
minutes.
game has got out of hand than to see him in the first half. So yes,
Right.
Derek, we welcome you, South Atlanta representative. You know
Yeah.
what I'm saying? Yeah, we appreciate you for coming on, and hey, and many people that can come in and get rebounds, the better.
Mhm. Yeah.
Absolutely. But
But going back to something you said, was actually great that you pointed out DeAndre Hunter, because the other piece there is this. You're starting to see it was actually a couple games back. I thought that DeJounte Murray had the best game that I'd seen, meaning the most complete game
yes,
with the Hawks, right? And I think that was to begin the 4-game West Coast swing. And I said, yeah, that's the DJ that the Hawks went out and got that they wanted to see on a consistent basis. And he's been building there. The reason I think that's important is because if you look at the 2 particular categories where the Hawks thrive, not just when they beat the Bucks twice, but even in the game that they lost to them earlier in the season, they were twice, Jarvis, in the rebound category ahead. It was like 49-41, and it was like 48-42. But even in one of those games, it was literally 42-41. So it bode very, very well for the Hawks when they were able to get some presence inside and really contest shots.
yeah,
But they held the Bucks as well, especially in those wins, to 33% from the perimeter and 21% from the perimeter. That is huge. That's going to be necessary if they're going to win that game tonight. So again, like you said, got another big to kind of get in there, maybe absorb some fouls and maybe contest some shots. We'll also need DeAndre Hunter and DeJounte Murray and even JC to kind of keep doing what they did in those first couple of games, getting out to the perimeter and making sure that the Bucks understand we're going to contest that shot as well. So if you make it, we're at least going to make you work for it.
absolutely. Because we know a lot of times we know the Hawks struggle when it comes to boxing out and getting
Indeed.
rebounds and giving up all those second chance points, and we know the Bucks. They got some bigs that can take advantage of that, and we definitely don't want to see that tonight at State Farm Arena as the Hawks get ready to take on the Bucks at 7:30. The tip. Our own Tenitra Batiste will be there live and in person. So if you see her, make sure you all speak. Stop being so scary. Oh, oh. All right. Anyway, speaking of a team that's not scary, the Georgia Bulldogs. It just came out that Jalen Carter has announced that he's going to declare for the NFL draft. Oh my God, I thought the man was going to stay in school and get his degree, and I thought education was a. Let me not even go into that spiel. Yes, I'm not shocked at all that this man is potentially going to be the number 1 overall draft pick. He signed with Drew Rosenhaus, but I think with all of the people that are going to declare for the draft, and graduate and move on to other things, whether it be playing football or whatever endeavors they want to get into. Who do you think is going to be the biggest loss for the Georgia Bulldogs as they try to come back and get this three-peat like we talked about earlier on in the week?
Yeah, I will go in a totally different direction. I know that last year you had 15 players who declared for the draft and just player after player after player who went in that first round where it was just like a domino effect, right? And you also have a Jalen Carter among players who are going to declare for the draft with the Dogs that are going to somewhat deplete that defense. However, if we've not seen anything else, they reload like nobody's business. The Dogs do,
Mm-hmm.
right? So
Yeah.
I think I'm going to go in the direction of quarterback. I
Yeah,
think that's one of the reasons, not that Stetson Bennett should have stayed in the game for all 4 quarters, don't get me wrong, but I thought it was interesting that, yes, Carson Beck was second on the depth chart going into the game, but I felt like that was the start of Kirby Smart's evaluation process to
yeah,
determine who he wants under center, because he has said, and Todd Monken has said, they do want somebody who is mobile, right? And yes,
yeah.
Stetson Bennett showed us shades of that, but you've heard a lot about, for example, Brock Vandergriff being a pretty, maybe the one who has the most mobility of the three, meaning Carson, Gunner, and Brock. So thinking about, or John Vandergriff. So I'm thinking about that piece and the fact that, I think this will be one of those situations like you and I used to say all the time, although I know Matt Ryan had a way bad year this year, but we used to always say you'll appreciate him when he's gone. You'll appreciate Stetson Bennett even more when he's gone, because now you're looking at some underclassmen having to take on the weight of a guy who essentially lost 3 games his whole tenure of starting and has led this team, not just managed, led the team to back-to-back championships. So I would say that's going to be maybe the biggest loss for them.
Yeah, I have to agree because Stetson Bennett is the guy who was the catalyst for this offense and being one of the best offenses in the league. And I even in the league in the college football, and I even tweeted out during the game. I was like, Todd Monken is in the matrix. So when Todd Monken speaks as to what he wants, and that is exactly what he's going to get, because that's
Yes.
what you need to give him too, Coach Smart. So I think this competition is going to be very interesting, and I think that's going to be the main focus as the Dogs get ready to try to go for this three-peat. Now, if you're trying to figure out a way to win some money, if you're trying to figure out a way to get over in the new year, how about you head to betonline.net, because it is the #1 source for all your betting needs and sports info, from all the latest odds, contests, and player props. You name it, they got it all there for you. You guys, I've been looking at this thing and I'm trying to figure out, because it's January now, February, March is coming up, so that means college basketball.
Yep.
It is about to get ready to go down. So who are you going to put your money on? Who are you looking for to put in that bracket? Go to Bet Online, because it remains the best spot for all your latest sports developments, including podcasts and reviews for all leagues this season. You guys come to us each and every day for all your ATL sports needs, for all your betting needs. Go to Bet Online. It is right there waiting for you. So head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more about the trends and action, because Bet Online is where the game starts.
And of course, I'm sure there's information that you can see soon enough on betonline.net about where various teams will go in the draft. And of course, we now know that the Falcons will be selecting 8. So our own Jarvis Davis was out at Flowery Branch today, and actually he's still there out at Flowery Branch today
Right.
for the end of season press conference, right? And that was the opportunity for, of course, the media to speak with Terry Fontenot, speak with Arthur Smith, and players to kind of get their thoughts on wrapping up 2022, but kind of looking ahead a little in 2023. So one of the questions that you asked was something that's always a topic of debate, right? And that is whether or not a team will choose to go with fitting a need with their pick, especially those high picks, versus going best available. Jarvis, what were your thoughts? Well, first of all, kind of share with our audience some of what the answer was for you, what your question was, and then kind of give our fans, our listeners, and our viewers your thoughts on what that might indicate for where the Falcons will go this time of year.
Yeah, see, one of the things I've always been intrigued by, because a lot of times people think that when coaches or general managers say best player available, they think that, oh yeah, like the people value quarterbacks more so than they value other positions. So if the best quarterback in the draft is right there, we're going to draft him regardless of whether we got a quarterback or not. No, it's not necessarily how that works. And
Right.
I think he gave a really good example as to what knowing what your needs are, and not necessarily settling for the best player available about where you pick. And you gave the example of Arne Ebiketie, and I thought that was very interesting, right? Because this is coming from a guy that I've always said hashtag pass rush matters. Like, that's my theme for the 2023 offseason, getting ready for next year. I think that The Falcons need pass rushers, and they knew they didn't need pass rushers. Like if you're gonna sit up here and say, "Oh, best player available, best player available," but you know
Right.
what you need.
Right.
So they have been lacking in that
Yeah.
department. So guess what they did?
Yeah.
They saw the value in Ebiketie, and they traded up for him to go get
Mhm.
him. So and that's what I feel comfort in. Like I
Yeah.
know if you're sitting there, you're going to be aggressive. And we talked about it on the show
Yeah.
about Terry being a little bit more aggressive this year. He
Mhm.
talked about shifting into the next phase of this rebuild.
Yes.
Those weren't his words. He didn't say
Mhm.
rebuild, but he
Right.
said, he talked
The
about
next
shifting to that
phase.
next
Yeah.
phase. This is the next phase. This is where you know that you need to address those glaring issues, right? Because you got a
Mhm.
solid foundation and,
Right.
as a team and what you're trying to do. But
Mhm.
when you talk about what those things are and making sure you're doing those things and making sure you're addressing those issues. And I think that was one thing that I was kind of made me feel all right when he broke
Yes.
it down like that. He was just like,
Mhm.
okay, yeah, this guy, he understands what's
Yeah.
going on. It's not like he looks at games every week just like we do. And I think that when you know what you need and you know what you
Mhm.
value somebody like an Ebiketie, you
Right.
moved up and do it. That tells me that if they value Jalen Carter in
Mhm.
that first round
Yes.
and they see an opportunity to jump up to go get him, they're
Mhm.
going to do that.
Yes. And they actually have been stacking, whether you look at draft picks, whether you look at money that could be utilized for free agency, they've been stacking the deck so that they can really go out and, like Terry Fontenot and Arthur Smith both said, move it to that next phase. And the word that you even used, aggressive. They didn't have to say the word aggressive. The speech, the focus, them giving that particular example. When he gave that AK example, I smiled because I
Yep.
was like, he's tipping his hand in a good way. He
Yeah.
wasn't trying to be deceptive or anything, but he was letting us know we went for what we wanted last year. And also, I think that gave us a lot of relief because, of course, being that we've covered the team the last few years, so we were there for the Kyle Pitts selection. We were there for the Drake London selection. And while we respected the fact that those guys really were best available at that time, it really kind of made us nervous, especially this go round, because we're like, oh God, a receiver. But
What are we
then,
doing? Why are
yeah,
we ignoring this other side of the football?
yeah, we're like, oh no, no, no. But when they were aggressive in going after Arnold Ebiketie, and then it kind of kept going, Troy Anderson and D'Angelo Malone, all of a sudden, a sense of relief came on. And then you get confirmation this season because you started seeing those players come on and
Yeah.
actually make some impact. And that also speaks to one other piece that I thought was interesting, where they talked about how what their focus would be in terms of how they balance going after guys in the draft and going after veterans, and how they used this year's template of, hey, we had to do 1 year contracts, right? 1 year prove it. But now we're in a position where we may be able to be a little bit more aggressive and go after some of those higher caliber and higher quality guys. So like you said hashtag pass rushers matter. And for me, I'm like hashtag use all your picks on defense. Hashtag,
I
hashtag pick
think you're a little bit more forthcoming than I am in this particular
exactly. Hashtag
situation.
pick defense. All I'm going to say until that draft day, I can promise you that. The other thing I thought was interesting and actually very encouraging as well is the thoughtfulness with which Arthur Smith talked about selecting his next defensive coordinator. He
Yeah.
was so fortunate to have built that relationship with Dean Pease starting in Tennessee and bring Dean Pease out of retirement the first time to come here and bring him in for what they were hoping was 3 years. But obviously, he ended up just coming for 2 years. But we talked about it yesterday. Obviously, he's already made the imprint. But then they talked about really casting a wide net and not rushing this process because they want to get the right guy in the system with not just the players they have, but the ones they know they're going to go after. That said, I wondered, I like that thought, but does that still mean at the end of the day that Frank Bush, their linebackers coach, who also subbed in for Dean Pease when he got injured in that Saints game when he got knocked down, is he going to get as much of a look to become that next DC, especially because he's had 2 years under Dean?
Yeah, I think he's definitely going to get a strong look. But if you're asking me if you're going to get preference for the position, I don't think so. Because here's the thing: I think Arthur Smith is really clear as far as what he wants. And Terry Fontenot even went as far
And
to say that, like,
yes,
those are the exact words.
those
He
were
knows
his
exactly what he
exact
wants.
words.
So I think that it's for Smith it's about establishing something, establishing a foundation. Like he even gave an example of the Baltimore Ravens, which I thought
Yes,
was
he
an
did.
excellent
I
example.
love that example.
Like it
Yes.
doesn't matter who the DC is. It's about a system, having a
Yep.
system in play, and knowing how you want to play, and establishing culture.
Hmm.
Terry Fontenot used culture probably about 30 times.
Very right.
Like, I'm not
Yes.
playing a drinking game with that particular term right there. So when you think about the coach knowing what he wants, the GM knowing the type of player or knowing the type of scheme that he wants to have or what he
Hmm.
sees, he knows what he has
Right.
difficulty against when he's calling plays as a play caller as
Exactly.
well when he's wearing that
Hmm.
hat. So all those things kind of add up to, all right, we don't have to preference, Frank Bush, but we do know exactly what we want, and Bush may have a little head start in that,
Right.
being that he
Hmm.
worked up under Dean Pease and he got a chance to call plays, and he was the interim defense coordinator for the New York Jets as well back in
Hmm.
2020. So
Yes.
he has experience doing those things. So I think that Bush could be a candidate, but I wouldn't be surprised if they may take a look at a guy like Brian Flores
Yeah.
or Gerard Mayo. You never know, and it is because if those guys are able to say, "Hey, I understand what you're trying to do, and I can call plays accordingly," then they're gonna
Hmm.
get the job.
Yeah, and you'll have guys like, I was reading an article from our friends over at the Falcoholic, and they kind of outlined very specifically some options. Of course, they mentioned Frank Bush. They also mentioned Tracy Rocker from the Eagles, and of course,
Yeah,
Arthur Smith keeps his Tennessee ties, so their D
absolutely.
line coach.
Yeah,
Terrell Williams was also an option listed there, but I say that to say that when you look at those defenses, you made a great point about the Baltimore Ravens. They have one thing in common, and that is a system. Like
yeah,
the Eagles system is vaunted. That has been in place for as long as we can remember, regardless of who is the DC. Same with the Titans. That is
yeah.
a defensive system that has been respected over time. So certainly those are some options. It'll be interesting to kind of see how it plays out over the next few weeks or months as they decide who is that guy is going to be on the defensive side, kind of leading the charge. And if you want to know about that, or you want to know how some of these dominoes are going to fall, a former Falcons defensive coordinator, for example, Raheem Morris, where is he going to land now that Sean McVay is pretty much giving all his people free reign to go wherever they want to? You want a reaction to that? Check out Locked On Sports today because they have the goods on all of the things going on, not just in the NFL, but even in the NBA. I'm sure they want to give you guys instant reaction on the fact that the Miami Heat shot 40 for 40 from the free throw line Tuesday night. Unreal. So if you want to check all of that out, go and check out Locked On Sports today on YouTube, on your Odyssey app, or wherever you download our podcast. Because definitely, of course, you want to stick around with us, but then you want to check them out next. And you love our For the Culture, which we're going to get into in a moment. So check out their show because they have Take of the Day, and it is really cool stuff as well. And Jarvis, one more thing, just in your overall sense of the direction of where the Falcons are going next season, we know that free agency is right
Mhm.
there beckoning for the Falcons to do something. Did you get an indication, especially because I thought that there was some very, very positive commentary about Desmond Ridder towards the end of the press conference, especially when Terry Fontenot started talking about the process of what they were looking for in him. But the question did come up about the possibilities of where you go for QB or where you go in free agency. Did you get any indication of where they might land as far as a potential backup or even a potential competitor for QB1?
I don't think so.
Yeah,
I believe,
I
I
thought they were kind of
wholeheartedly
saying so
believe,
too.
I believe with my heart and soul that they are sold on Desmond Ridder.
I think so too.
And how long that is, I'm not. I won't put a number on that. I believe that they are sold on Desmond Ridder. They
Yeah.
like. I believe they like the development that they saw. They like the progression that he went through from game one to game four. That stuff matters. Consistency matters with Arthur Smith,
Yes.
and I think that Terry Fontenot, he loves consistency as well. That's one of the reasons why he fell in love with Desmond Ridder because I talked about best player available and being out in those Senior Bowl games. I
Yes.
asked him about that, like what are the benefits of it, and his first example was Desmond Ridder,
Desmond Ridder.
right? Because hey, you get a chance to really get to know the guy and understand who he is, and like every time you come in contact with him, he was the same guy. And when you got to pay attention to that type of stuff, because when
Mhm.
coaches and general managers talking about consistency, not only off the field, but on the field as well. A lot of times that transfers to on the field. Because if
Mhm.
I talk to you the same way, I engage you the same way, every time I meet you, more than likely your training, your being,
Mhm.
your ethos is Terry Fontenot like to use. Your ethos is I'm gonna be consistent with you. I'm
Yes.
gonna make sure I greet you and meet you and sit with you and do with you the same way each and every time, and that means a lot when you're talking about being an athlete and doing what you're supposed to do off the field from a
Yes.
studying standpoint, and
Mhm.
making
Mhm.
sure you're interacting with your teammates,
Yeah.
because we all know what their locker room, how important that is, and how
Yeah.
that what that get down is. So yeah, I think the Falcons are going to be cool with Desmond Ridder going to the 2023 season, and
Mhm.
I wholeheartedly believe that they're going to be more so of a backup situation
Yeah.
when it comes to that quarterback position, and not necessarily a guy who can compete for the starting position against Desmond Ridder.
Yeah, I agree. I think they'll be more focused on putting a few more pieces around him to make him successful. Because think about it, not to say take anything away from the current receiver core, and we know we've spoken highly of the running back core, but Desmond Ritter's numbers in just 4 games, especially on that critical third down, which is a place where they have problems all season, the average for the league is like around 88% for quarterbacks. His
Right.
was in the mid 90s. So
Yeah.
that's something to say you could hang your hat on, because you know that that guy can help you move the chains in critical situations. But again, that's something to be encouraged about. So I don't believe Falcons fans need to be stressed about the draft at all. So we always talk about Built Bar in terms of something you should eat when you're stressed out. Honestly, I think you guys around draft time will be eating that in celebration.
You
That's
better.
what I think. Yeah. Let's put a positive spin on when you should have a Built Bar, especially because they've kind of remixed their offerings and what they're bringing to you guys. So same delicious treat, but now even fewer grams of fat and calories. The caloric intake is going to be up, or the calorie intake is going to be up. So if you want to eat healthy and you want to eat positively in good situations, this is where you should go. 100% chocolate, check, that's still there. But now you've got a few different flavors: churro, peanut butter brownie, and coconut almond. And I know I like almond, so that's a good look. Now, only 130 calories. That's what we're talking about. Remember, the calorie intake used to be higher, so they've even gotten that better, and yet reduced the sugar down to 4 grams, increased the proteins to 17 per bar. So definitely check it out. If you're like me and you live in Wally World, you're going to find that you can find a bar in Wally World now. It's a 4-pack box at Walmart. And if you like me and you live in Wally World, the upscale version, Sam's Club, you can actually get a 13 bar box. And that box comes with those brownie butter bars that I talked about, or brownie batter rather, and churros. So again, you can go to build.com and order, but you can also go to Walmart and Sam's Club and get what should be becoming your favorite snack of the day.
And what you also should be doing is going to Locked On Sports Atlanta on YouTube and hitting that doggone subscribe button. We are on our way to 6,000. We're at 5,200 right now. So we got a little ways to go. So we need your help. If you have not subscribed or liked our channel, go there and get that doggone subscribe button and make sure you hit that bell. So whenever we get ready to drop an episode, you will be notified. And there's nothing wrong with being linked to us 24/7. It's cool. I promise you. We ain't gonna disturb you. We're just gonna give you this good content each and every day. But see, this is for the culture. It is the intersection between sports, entertainment, and culture. Sometimes whatever the hell we want to talk about. Because that's just how we get down on this show. Today is no different. How about this? I mentioned at the top of the show that Kendall Milton's my homeboy. Here's why. So it's 59-7. It's the fourth quarter. Kendall Milton out here got a little touchdown under his belt. So he looking at his offensive lineman. He's saying, man, my boys look hungry. You know what? Let me make my way over to this doggone field level suite. Oh, y'all got some wings? Man, let me get that plate right there. Boom. Snatch the plate of wings, walks it back over to the bench. Then all the big homies just start grabbing wings, T. They just grub it. They just grub it. And the game not even over yet. People
No.
can talk about disrespectful. No, this is not disrespectful. This is absolutely amazing because Little guy take care of big guy when he's hungry. I'm talking about you got a friend for life, T.
Yes.
Life.
Yes.
Rings too? Come on.
And let's just be honest. The disrespect had already happened on the field. All right. Jordan had chosen violence from the first minute of that game. Okay. So all he was doing was being as gangster as his whole team had been the entire game. And he just decided, like you said, to reward his big guys for being a phenomenal O-line. I mean, won that game in the trenches from the opening kickoff, if we're being honest.
Backups, T, were in there.
And then the backups were like, I'm like, the backups are out here like, oh, wait, you want to eat Brandon Robinson? We got you. Go to it. So, and literally and figuratively, right? But yeah, it's so Atlanta. Like, it's so Atlanta. And let me just say this. The reason I'm saying this for all of our friends in Athens, we love you, but we claim you. And let me tell you why we legitimately are able to claim you, because the Atlanta metro area consists of upward of 16 counties, of which, what is it, Clark County?
Clark County.
Yeah, Clark County, that's you too. So when we say that's so Atlanta of him to do, well, because it is.
Yeah. The wing culture spreads everywhere.
Yes. And he should know. That guy on the other side knows it better than anybody. Guys, whenever he can tell you, if somebody's in town and they are wanting some wings, first thing I do is text Jarvis, JD, where we going? What we doing? Where should I take them?
T, do I feel you? Do I feel you? Do I come through or no?
All the time. He does not disappoint.
And we appreciate you guys for coming through each and every day right here on ATL Day Ones and making us your first listen. How about you make your second listen? Locked On Sports Today. That is the place you need to go because they have all the news, the national news and everything. Like you might find out about what's going on with the Heat, or you might find out about what's going on with the Falcons defense coordinator search. All the coaches moving around in the NFL. Go to Locked On Sports Today. They got it right wherever you download this podcast. And coming up on tomorrow's show, we got a lot more to download on this end of the year press conference from Fontenot and Arthur Smith. And we'll see if the Hawks were able to show some consistency. Y'all make sure y'all come back now. You hear?